What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, The Hater. And The Hater is here today with a wrestling video, of course, but also with a very brief lesson on economics and the principle of scarcity, right? The idea of scarcity is very, very simple, right? The fewer of something there are, right? And the more people want that something, obviously, the price of that something is going to increase, right? Price then increases when we have fewer and fewer of something, right? So let's say the interest is like a 1 out of 10, right? It's just always going to be a 1 out of 10. And you have 1,000 things to sell. If now you have 5 things to sell, it's much easier for you to get interest in selling them all because people are like, oh shit, there's only 5, right? This is very, very well illustrated by WWE recently selling 1,316 titles that commemorate Roman Reigns' title reign, right? It's not a coincidence. They're not stupid. They know that if they sell 2,000, they might make more money, right? But they also know it's possible that they won't make more money. Why? Because if you sell like 10,000, someone's like, I'll buy it later, right? But if they say, oh, we're only selling 1,316 or whatever, right? Then you're like, shit, I better buy it because it's going to sell out, right? This is why sometimes when you go to like websites to buy things, it'll say things like, oh, there's only 2 left, you know? And like, you know, there's probably hundreds of them left, but they try to make it seem scarce because through scarcity, you can get more sales, right? Now, the reason why this is relevant in wrestling is because there is only one WWE title, right? And there only has been one, if we're being honest, right? Like, it's no secret that my favorite wrestler of all time is Christian Cage, also known as Christian in the WWE. Now, with that being said, I really would have liked if Christian became WWE champion. He became World Heavyweight champion, which is recognized by the WWE as being equal, but it's not the same thing, and we all know it, right? As a matter of fact, one of the Hater's very close friends is Indian, right? And he's a really big wrestling guy. And he got really excited when Jinder Mahal became champion. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. I'm like, why do you give a shit so much? Because I'm like, Great Khali became champion, right? And he's like, it's not the same, bro. It's not the same. Great Khali became World Heavyweight champion. Jinder Mahal has the title that Hulk Hogan had. Those are his exact words. See what I'm saying? So the WWE title is the most important element in the history of wrestling, right? In fact, I would argue that the number one reason, right, aside from, of course, just the reach of the WWE, but the number one reason why wrestling companies that are not WWE don't have the same success is because fundamentally, at the end of the day, you have the WWE title in WWE, and nobody cares about the AEW championship, right? Like the fact that, for example, the fact that Swerve Strickland is the first black AEW champion means nothing because being the AEW champion means nothing. You see what I'm saying? Right? That's the fundamental difference between WWE and other companies, right? That's why, for example, TNA, when they started, they had the NWA title, right? Because that title has prestige. It doesn't have the same prestige as WWE, right? Because, you know, like, at the end of the day, the WWE title has main evented so many WrestleManias. But it does have some prestige, right? And that's why people still care about that a little bit. Everything else is kind of useless. All these other made-up titles are kind of useless, right? Like, I don't know about you, but for me, when Finn Balor, for example, won the Universal title, I don't count that as a world title run, right? I don't care. I don't care if WWE calls it one. I don't care. I know that he doesn't consider it one. I know that Kevin Owens doesn't think of himself as having been the WWE champion because he wasn't. He was the bullshit Universal title holder, right? And here's how I know. It's always the shit wrestlers that wrestle for the shit title, right? And when I say shit, I'm not saying they're all bad. Like, I would put Christian Cage in that category, right? It's like, the World Heavyweight title is the best Christian Cage can do, right? But that's arguably the second most important title in the history of wrestling, right? Like, I think it's more important than the WCW title because it's main evented several WrestleManias, you know? But think about how hard it was for that title to get that prestige, you know? It was years and years and years of it being main evented on Raw pay-per-views and then eventually SmackDown pay-per-views, being held by absolute legends, etc., right? Like, they should have kept that title going, you know, like for the longest time. You know what I mean? Or at least bring it back with the big gold belt, right? You want that because that's how you get prestige. Now, after this relatively long rant on the prestige of belts, right? Obviously, I'm connecting this to the fact that now the WWE title, for the first time ever, has no prestige. And here's why. The way that anything gets prestige, as we've established at the beginning of this video, is through the principle of scarcity, right? We need scarcity to make things feel valid, right? There can only be one WWE title, and that is the WWE title. But in order for the principle of scarcity to apply, you cannot have what are called substitute goods, right? For example, if I really want a hot dog right now, and there aren't any hot dogs available, I might settle for a corn dog, right? That would be a substitute good. A great example would be Coca-Cola and Pepsi, right? It's like a lot of times, like I'm definitely more of a Coke guy, but a lot of times you go to a restaurant and you say, can I get a Coke? They say, sorry, we have Pepsi, is that okay? And you have to say, yeah, that's okay, I guess. Normally, like there's been times when I'm like, no, it's not okay. You know what I mean? What do you mean? Like you're just gonna throw that at me as if it's the same thing? It ain't the same thing, playa hater. But anyways, the point is, when there are substitute goods, the principle of scarcity is diminished, right? Like Coca-Cola is less valuable because we have Pepsi, right? Because most people are okay with this substitution. Likewise, for the first time ever, and you can make an argument with the World Heavyweight title like I just did, but for the first time ever, there is a substitute to the WWE title. That substitute is the pepper necklace, motherfucks. And here's why. I know I talked about this in the last video a bit, but I didn't make this point, which I think is the most important point. The main character, right, is very clear in any point in wrestling, right? The main character of wrestling right now is Roman Reigns. It's his story at this point, right? He is the one that is being presented as the guy that you should care the most about, right? This is evidenced by the fact that he's closing the shows. You know what I mean? And then after that, on Raw, you have like the Wyatt Six closing the show and other bullshit, you know? But you understand what I'm getting at here. So with all that being said, we've got the good old cuckold himself, Cucky Rhodes, doing nothing. Definitely not closing shows, but not even wrestling, right? Now, forget about him, right? If we focus on Roman Reigns, who's clearly the main character, the motivation of the main character must be to go after the most prestigious thing in the entire company, in the entire universe that makes up the story itself, right? The goal of every athlete, right, is to win the championship, right? If you are an Eagles fan, I'm sure you really want to beat the Commanders, the Giants, and the Cowboys, right? But I'm sure most Eagles fans, and this can go for every team, wouldn't mind going 0-2 against all three of their division rivals and winning the Super Bowl, right? They wouldn't mind that at all. If they went 9-6, made it to the Super Bowl, and then won the Super Bowl, they wouldn't mind at all, right? Yeah, it feels good to beat your rival, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is being champion. Now, if you can do both, that's ideal. But the most important thing is being champion. Likewise, Roman Reigns should prioritize becoming WWE champion before prioritizing Solo Sikoa and the pepper necklace, right? The fact that Roman Reigns as a character doesn't want to do this, it speaks volumes. Number one, it shows us that Cody Rhodes is not someone that they have any faith in, right? Nobody thinks that Cody Rhodes can actually be the face of the company. Because the face of the company, you wouldn't be afraid of putting him against Roman Reigns. They're obviously afraid because they think that Roman Reigns is going to outperform Cody and people are going to cheer for Roman. Not anymore, I don't think, because they already screwed everything up. But I think that's the idea, right? With that being said, it doesn't change the fact. Roman Reigns is going after the wrong thing, and as a result, the wrong thing is being highlighted by the principle of scarcity, right? The same way there can be only one WWE champion, there can be only one tribal chief, even though there are infinite amounts of Ulufala necklaces, right? Roman Reigns is prioritizing something that is not the WWE title, and that is a booking and writing error. At no point did anyone prioritize anything over the WWE title. Yes, there were situations, right, when you are not the number one contender and you are not the champion. That's when you wrestle the guy that you hate. But if you can be the number one contender, you want to be the number one contender. You want to be able to say that I am that dude and I am the champion of this company. Do you understand me? With all that being said, what can we say about everything that we've seen? The reality is what the reality is. The WWE is positioning their number one guy as being someone that doesn't care about the world title. You remember how I sometimes say that The Undertaker was an upper mid-carder? That's why. Undertaker was not a real main eventer because, number one, he didn't main event that often, right? Like, if you look at the amount of main events that Cena's had versus Undertaker, it's like Cena probably has like hundreds and hundreds of more main events, you know, not just in pay-per-views, but on Raw and SmackDown and stuff, right? There's a lot of times Undertaker was just like in the middle of the card, you know, especially on pay-per-views, you know, obviously. Like, The Undertaker, even though he was like a legend, like on his like 11th or 12th year of wrestling, it wouldn't be above him to go after like the hardcore title, you know what I mean? So, there you have it. The point I'm trying to make though is this. The Undertaker was a special attraction. So, for him, you know, he wasn't concerned about the WWE title because he's basically a demon from hell, right? And I made the same point about Bray Wyatt, rest in peace, right? If you are Bray Wyatt, you know, or even worse, if you are The Fiend, you know, then you should have no interest in being WWE champion because The Fiend is a monster. He doesn't care about being champion because he's retarded, right? Kane is another one. It's understandable if Kane wants to go and shock Shane McMahon's balls instead of being champion because he's Kane, he's retarded, right? Now, Roman Reigns, on the other hand, is not presented as being retarded. And furthermore, Solo Sikoa is not presented as being retarded because Solo Sikoa, as soon as he lost a title match, right, he went to Cody Rhodes and he's like, I want a rematch, right? This further explains how dumb this entire storyline has been. Instead of letting Solo Sikoa win, I know you don't want Solo Sikoa as the champion, but I said this before, if you recall, that Solo should win. Roman Reigns has a bigger interest in Solo Sikoa becoming champion. Then he can come back and say, oh great, I want a match against Solo Sikoa. You know? He goes to Adam Pearce or to Magnus, and he says, hey Magnus, I'd like my rematch. Solo Sikoa has my title, right? They make the match. Roman Reigns can beat him, get the title, and then if he's around, can also get the Ulufola, right? Which is absurd, but that would be the thing that makes the most sense for Roman Reigns. Instead, Roman Reigns comes back as a moron who doesn't understand this, and now he's focused on getting back the necklace. So there you have it. That's why WWE sucks, and that's why the Triple H era is garbage.